what's up, everybody? Welcome once again to IGN's News, Games, and More. I'm Max Scoville, and I'm joined by three of my good friends, Michael
Hello.
Ryan Altano.
Hello.
And Jonathan Dornbush.
We're friends?
I think we're friends.
Oh.
We're very intimate colleagues, at the very least.
I'll take it.
In any case, this is the show where IGN gets a few of its best and brightest together at the end of the day to kind of run down all the latest and greatest things that during the day in the course of the news, of the games, and everything else. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today, but before we get started, a little bit of how immediately after this on this very channel that you are watching as we speak, a bunch of IGN folks are going to be sitting down with a fellow named Joseph Mazzello, who might know better as the little boy Tim Murphy in the classic film Jurassic Park. And they're going to be watching Jurassic Park and syncing up. They're going to give you sort of a time code, so if you want to watch Jurassic Park along with everyone, you can do that. And it's like a live commentary. It's great. We've been doing this with a bunch of movies. Yesterday it was 10 Cloverfield. And if you don't have Jurassic Park for some weird reason, I feel like everyone should have Jurassic Park. We have some links in the description below where you can rent it for pretty cheap because it's been out for 25 years. But that is watch from home theater. And if you want to sort of ask questions and stuff, you can use the hashtag WFHtheater and you might get your questions answered by Tim Murphy as an adult man who survived the dinosaur island.
Or a raptor.
You could, yeah.
Ooh.
I heard
A raptor might be there. You never know. They're sneaky.
They're smart. It's like a dunking booth. If he gets a question wrong, you get to electrocute him on this novelty fence.
Yeah, we've got
to check it out.
You went the fence route. I was like, yeah, they got him in one of those big crates, like the beginning when they just got the cattle prods in there. It's a sick joke either way. The boy got electrocuted.
Shoot him!
Yeah. No, I hope that he's eating Jell-O the whole time and he's just got the shakes because there's dinosaur shadows. Anyway, there's really no way I can segue from that into our next story, so let's just get it over with.
Give it a shot. See what happens. Maybe you have something.
Speaking of, you go.
Well, speaking of speed, which the Velociraptors are known for, the Xbox Series X has some new details. The Coalition Technical Director Mike Rayner properly quantified exactly how fast the new Series X is. He said, with the Xbox Series X out of the gate, we reduced our load time on Gears 5 by more than 4 times without any code changes. So, we joke about them dragging and dropping games onto new hardware and being like, it's better now. But apparently they literally did that. And they were like, Gears5.exe and dumped it on a Series X and it ran 4 times faster. So that's cool as hell.
Oh, yeah. I think... Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, we make the joke a lot on Beyond of are they just going to save The Last of Us Part 2 as .ps5 and then have it run faster? But maybe they can. We'll see. I think that's pretty incredible. Obviously, this was a game that was originally made for the Xbox One and One X. So this isn't a fully built out game for the Series X. So it'll be interesting to see what full software that's made for that system will run like. But
right.
This reminds me a lot of that Spider-Man demo that Sony showed but didn't fully reveal, but had a leaked video of and just let exist, where they showed Spider-Man running on PS4 load times versus PS5 hardware, and it's instantaneous. So seeing that the Series X is going to be doing something similar for load times is great because load times are awful. So that's wonderful.
Do you think this is gonna make the game more difficult now that it's running 4 times faster? Will it impact the speedrunning community? What do you think is gonna be some of the long-term ramifications here?
Oh, dude, that actually is a really good point. Because with speedrunners,
no, I'm joking, but yeah,
no, I know you are. But for speedrunners doing doing speedruns, typically they do older games, but there are plenty of people who do speedruns of Skyrim. And in addition to the sequence breaking and all that nonsense, load times do factor into that.
I'm a big Resident Evil 4 fan, as I mentioned before, and I watch speedruns a lot, and a lot of people defer to the PC version of that game because for that exact reason, because it's snappier than some of the others. And so when they're going for the world record, without running any sort of cheats or exploits or tool assisted stuff, running it natively on a console or PC hardware, that's generally where they like to go. So yeah, that could change things a little bit. But this is actually mostly about load times in general. But yeah,
but I thought it was generally acceptable to edit out load screens if you're taking your overall time. Is that right in the speedrunning community, or is that in the rule book that you can't?
I mean, that's got to really kind of take the like if you're doing it on like a live stream, I imagine you can't really you can subtract it at the end, but it kind of kills the oomph there if you have to be like,
I agree, but at the same time, if load times are somewhat randomized machine to machine, it doesn't seem fair for it to factor into your world record attempt at a speed run. You know
what I was reading about the Tour de France and how like when they're riding all their bikes together and like it doesn't matter who's in the lead, if they pass through one of the riders' hometowns, everyone lets him go to the very front of the pack and he just like goes through the hometown and everyone claps and hands out like croissants or whatever, and they all have little Gatorade pouches or whatever, and then like there's a bunch of weird stuff where like they'll all pull over to go to the bathroom, but it's like that's not really how a race should work. I don't know. Obviously,
maybe it is, man. Maybe it is.
Yeah, that's why I demanded that my parents give birth to me in the hometown where the race ends, so that I could win.
Smart. To get us a little back on track, I feel like
good luck.
It's fun because we saw that Sony reveal that was essentially a tech-facing reveal that the internet reacted with like, what was this wall of jargon at me? And so far, Microsoft has done a lot more work and been more successful messaging about things that are real-world, concrete, you can wrap your head around it, quality of life improvement. And I think that just sort of continues that trend. We have next-gen console watch, but I think a lot of people will be switching onto it now that it's started to, like, the rubber's meeting the road as far as you're like, no load screen. That I understand immediately. Right. I don't have to know what a teraflop is. It's go time for the hype cycle to actually ramp up.
The three of us are on a regular PlayStation show together, Beyond, plug. And it honestly, the being on Sony's side of this thing during this console year I'm jealous of Unlocked because they have stuff to talk about where we're like, remember that time Mark Cerny gave a weird PowerPoint in a dark room? That was wowzers.
That's the thing. It drives me nuts because I was just talking about that Spider-Man video. That thing was leaked from like an investor call and Sony never released it themselves. But the day that Microsoft decided to show a very, very similar thing, they just put out a video on the Xbox Newswire and was like, here's the speed compared from a 1X to a Series X. There you go. And it's like, they have this video. They've shown it to people. They're okay with it being online. I wish we could see some examples of this, even if they don't have to show us new game.
I was completely expecting Mark Cerny to roll that clip in the middle of the presentation and be like, here's how it worked. Like he talked about that technology and how fast an area can load, and you don't have to have elevators to hide your load screens or whatever. But then then he didn't show anything,
I thought it was he was gonna start flickering and you'd realize I've been a PS5 generated hologram this whole time.
The only game that was shown during that conference, to my knowledge, was Dead Space, the classic PlayStation franchise.
Good game, though. So, good game.
Great game.
Very good game. No, I mean, to echo everything you guys are saying, I think that Microsoft's transparency in 2020 has been incredibly commendable. I'll say also in 2019, the fact that they are coming out with more and more sort of like concrete examples of what this tangibly will live and breathe like when we actually have it in our homes. Is really nice to know. On the flip side, I will say I'm still sort of skeptical about this console as a launch as its own identity because they're touting the load times on what is now will soon be last gen game. They have said that there are no exclusive games coming specifically to just the Series X at launch. So this is all well and good, but I do want them to start ramping up this is why you want this and why you need this, and not just, this is why this is faster than the thing you have already. Because I have a 1X and I love it, and and I'll gladly upgrade, and I probably will regardless of what I say on the show, or even if they don't tweet anything for the rest of the year because I'm an idiot. But I do think that if they start getting a little bit more transparent about like this is what really separates this thing from everything else, and not just in the way it can improve current gen stuff. Although this is a nice way to hold us over.
Phil Spencer. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Were you going to talk about the Phil Spencer tweet?
The tweet. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I have it in front of me, but he basically, to speak to transparency and how Microsoft is actually like crushing it right now in terms of actually just maintaining that. Somebody tweeted at Phil Spencer was like, hi, how are you feeling about the eventual reveals of any new games? New info about Series X later this year. How is planning going? There are definitely a lot of hungry fans out there. Like totally just let's see, he's just a regular guy. No, he's like a YouTuber. He's like a YouTuber, but maybe whatever. But Phil Spencer just responded, was like, reviewed plans yesterday for continued sharing through launch. Team is doing great work in adapting. I've never been more excited about Xbox plans. We've heard you. You want transparency slash authenticity. We plan to keep showing that way. Next step is not too much of a wait. And then in parentheses, games. So it's like, that's awesome.
That makes me think that we're going to get some sort of reveal thing in May.
We've seen a lot of rumors and speculation about some sort of May event, and that sort of feels more likely by the day, especially with comments like that. And Brian, to your point, though, I think the interesting thing, and we talked about it a bit on Beyond this week, but also on Next Gen Console Watch, which airs tomorrow, of how Microsoft is playing a different game than what Sony's trying to do right now, with that lack of Series X specific exclusives. They'll obviously have Microsoft exclusives, but like Sony is eventually going to be pitching us on why you need to upgrade to the PS5, but Microsoft wants you in the door however you get in the door, and whether that's through an Xbox One X, whether that's through playing on PC, whether that's through Series X or the rumored, but like everything but confirmed Series S, the lesser tier Lockhart model, they just want people in their ecosystem, and they seem to be pushing for that as their message. And whether or not that's the right plan, we'll have to see in a year or two, but that seems to be their focus more so than like, here's why you need the Series X.
But take heart, Beyond guys. Don't you think that it's inevitable? It's not like Sony is not going to have games, or you know what I mean? But by the time the thing physically is here, all of the tools in their arsenal will have been rolled out. I think for whatever reasons, and we can speculate or not, they've just chosen different timing and different timelines. But the drop has to come, right? The loot box has to open one day, and the Sony goodness will pour out. Or do you think there's a chance they're going to maintain this like sort of weak sauce approach all the way up till near launch?
Well, so to speak on that really quickly, I think that the main thing that Sony's dealing with right now is that they have their hands completely full with finishing this generation, and it seems like Microsoft kind of ended theirs already. Like, no offense, I love my Xbox, but I'm not. There isn't really like a current gen Xbox AAA exclusive game that I'm looking forward to this year that I don't immediately think that I should be playing on the Series X instead. Whereas Sony still has a bunch of stuff that they're committed to this generation, and several of which have non-existent release dates currently. They're still working on Ghost of Tsushima. They're still working on Iron Man VR. They still have The Last of Us Part 2. These are some of the biggest games of the year. And I think that Microsoft has the advantage right now of sort of not really having a lot going on, that they can kind of shift the focus here in the same way that the Nintendo Switch like dominated once we had already kind of sunset our conversations on the Wii U. Mm-hmm. It was all systems go for Nintendo then, and I think it's the same thing for Microsoft right now. But Sony still has some stuff to finish off this gen, so I think they've been a little distracted. That said, I want more information either way, you know?
Yeah.
I think we'll get it randomly on the PlayStation blog on a Thursday afternoon, like we got the DualSense controller revealed, because there was the Bloomberg report from last week that talked about what's going on with Sony right now and the possible like limitations that we'll see of PS5 availability this fall. And one of the biggest things they said that they're dealing with because of COVID isn't the limitation on the hardware side. That's sort of a separate issue, but that they don't know how they're going to be messaging this thing, how they're going to be marketing it. Like, we already knew they were going to be skipping E3. And now that E3 is not happening, we don't know wherever they could be going. And so there's not really a clear plan in place for when they're going to show people why they should buy a PS5. And given the state of the world, how they're going to put PS5 controllers in people's hands to demo these games. A lot of that remains up in the air. At the very least, obviously, Microsoft hasn't been demoing Halo Infinite for 2 or 3 years. It's not like that's been the case, but we know Halo Infinite's coming. We know Hellblade 2 is coming. We know there are at least things we know are happening there, and so you see the trajectory, especially since they were going to be at E3. But right now, Sony is just a total question mark.
Yep.
Anyway, I want to read one comment real quick. Robotic Slave says faster than the Xbox One X, less than half the speed of the PS5, which again is none of us know what a teraflop means, and apparently we didn't know what teraflops did anyway. So that's a moot point. But should be okay, but hardly next gen. Might buy a Series X in 2022 since that's when it starts getting made for next gen games. But until then, my GTX 1080 and my old M2 SSD is more than enough to upscale their last gen made first party titles. That raises a fair point. If you've got a solid PC, like, what are you doing getting riled up about next gen hardware. It's kind of like if it, flip case of that is like Game Pass Ultimate lets you play games you can download them for free on PC. It's I don't know. It's a weird time to be trying to bang a drum for one particular console or hardware thing. But on that subject.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's why I think ultimately the ecosystem approach, I'm not going to speculate on like who's going to win the next generation, but it has a lot of things in its corner as a very smart approach. The idea of gaming PCs are coming down in price at the same time consoles are becoming more and more powerful. At a certain point, the definition of what the box is that brings you this thing you like to do is going to blur, and things will just be screens. There's your phone, is your tablet, is your whatever to some degree. And I think they are reasoning, which as someone who doesn't own a multi-million-dollar gaming company, I can easily say, sounds smart to me, that they're like, we need to get people more into our culture, our ecosystem, our environment, which arguably is what Nintendo's had from the beginning. They're just so jealously a unique enclosure. If you find it enjoyable, you better collect Nintendo bucks and put on your Nintendo shirt and come to the Nintendo land, because that's...
Yeah. Anyway,
it makes sense.
Yeah. Game Pass is, like I said, it's been kind of that's a great way that Microsoft has been getting people to pay attention to whatever their system is. Like I've historically been this last generation been glued to my PS4, and then Game Pass happened, and suddenly I'm like, yeah, if I'm going to be like impulse playing games, and it's there's a bunch of this whole library to pull from, then hell yeah, I'll go over there. I was kind of amazed a few months ago. Grand Theft Auto 5 became just effectively free through that subscription service. That is going to be going away. It's not a permanent fixture, but presumably a lot of people jumped on the GTA 5 bandwagon and played it on their Xboxes. But it's not all bad news. GTA 5 is disappearing, but Rockstar is replacing it with a newer game, which is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is that feels like a pretty hefty addition to Game Pass.
Yeah, that's gigantic.
I also wonder if it implies that they will have a generous policy of games get 5-6 years old, the remasters, and they roll it out free somewhere. That if they can afford to do it and make the games and that all works out, that would be great. It's a way to earn the trust of the consumer, certainly, especially when you don't need to do that. That's beyond, honestly, what I think a lot of us expect. I didn't expect GTA 5 to be essentially free for some time to come.
Same with Red Dead. I mean, we just got NPD sale numbers 3 days ago, and Red Dead was still in the top 12 or 13. I believe it was 13th best-selling game of the month for last month, which is phenomenal for a 2-year-old title at this point. It's completely insane that is A, still selling so well, but B, that Rockstar was kind of just like, oh no, it's on Game Pass now. Like, they don't need to do that. They're doing that because they want to, which is kind of awesome, Yeah,
I mean, it's possible that Microsoft cut them a check, but that's still that's still pretty cool. It's also, that is a phenomenal game to be playing while you're cooped up indoors, because that's a game about walking around a gigantic, beautiful, incredibly detailed open world of nature.
As immersive as possible. Yeah, and it's an outside simulator. The same reason I love Skyrim right now. I'm like, feels like I'm outside at least.
Yep.
Get a little vitamin D virtually. So before we move on from this, I wanted to bring up another comment that was in our notes, which I might get eviscerated right now in comments. I'm not sure. But I thought an interesting point. Someone on O&O, I want to shout them out. Matthew King 1277 said, why are load times even that big of a deal? And I will say this. I will always accept no load times over load times, but my question is, it's never stopped me from enjoying a truly great game, and Red Dead Redemption 2 is a perfect example of the fast travel. You just sort of chill out and wait until you hear the soundtrack come back up, look at these pretty lithic, and I'm okay with that. Is it that just because I grew up in a time with load screens and like my children will not abide? Are these going to go away?
Here's a counterpoint to that. Bloodborne is to date one of my favorite games I've ever played. When I first played it, when it first launched, the load times were substantially longer, and that's a game where you have to die a lot, and it makes it less of a. I mean, obviously, dying is a punishment for screwing up and being bad at the game, but sometimes it's like it's really a punishment. It's like it prohibits you from playing the game further. Like a load, it feels like being on timeout. You know, like I was a fat kid in middle school and I sucked at dodgeball, so I would be out really quickly, and then I wasn't playing dodgeball anymore. And then what's the point? You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I'm right now playing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which is one of the first games that came out for this generation. I'm playing on my PS4 Pro, and the load times are like instant. But I was recently playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they were quite a bit longer. And I really appreciate the difference in the lack of load times, especially for me because I'm someone who gets kind of easily distracted. So if there's a long load time, I'm going to immediately check my phone and check Twitter and check Facebook. And the more I do that, the less I'm enjoying the game. And that's my fault. Like that, you know, the game has these tech things it has to do. It's my fault that I immediately go to the phone and keep checking. But if I'm doing that constantly, if I keep dying or loading between spaces, I eventually lose a bit of interest in the game. So eliminating the load times keeps me invested in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say real quick that I don't mind load times. I mind like egregiously long ones that, you know, like Bloodborne was in the 60 to 90 second range when it launched. Like that's I have friends that were like doing push-ups every time they died just to find something to kill the time. That's like, I mean, that's what people do in prison. Like the thing is, when I'm playing a game and it has 5 or 6, maybe 7, 8 seconds of load times, it doesn't really bother me. I will say that on Switch, initial launch load times is where I get the most bothered by it, because it's like if I grab my Switch and I only have a few seconds to start up a game or something like that, that becomes very annoying. Luckily, a lot of that gets circumvented by sort of standby mode and, you know, hitting the button and jumping right back in. If I was to write a list of things I want fixed for next gen, load times really wouldn't be up there. I would say get rid of the 60 to 90 second ones, but I feel like that was we you know, slap people on the wrist this generation for that kind of stuff. So ideally, that's going out the window either way.
I mean, the thing that I've enjoyed most this generation is the ability to suspend a game. Because, I mean, you remember growing up, it's like, I have to find a save point, Mom. I can't just stop here. And now it's like, we're going to the grocery store. Like, okay, like I'll just put my PS4 to sleep. It's fine. And I don't know, like the Switch is the same way, where you just turn it off and it's not a big deal. It doesn't waste your time having to get back to where you were. And it's, if the sort of new thing this time around, like the ability to suspend multiple games at once sounds phenomenal to me, because there are times when I'll be bouncing between games, but the amount of time it'll take to like close one out and open up another one is the thing that will prohibit me from wanting to go back into that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have a few games saved on my PS4 like dashboard, and I look at them and I'm in the middle of, you know, a big open world game like Assassin's Creed. Maybe I could do with like a half-hour session of Hollow Knight or another platformer, and then I'm like, it's a bit too much to have to go through all of that right now. I'll just save it for later and then keep delaying going to it.
Yeah, and it sounds like next gen's going to fix that for us, honestly, because there's multiple suspend points in the Series X, and I believe in PlayStation as well. So, yeah, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the key thing to respond to this initial comment is that, like, it's not that I'm impatient with load times. It's just that when a load screen is up, I'm not playing a video game, and the whole point of the video game is to play the video game. So, like, is it wrong to want to play the video game instead of staring at the JPEG with the obvious tip at the bottom? Like, anyway,
my strong argument for you guys to tear apart mercilessly worked very well. But yeah, let's move on to some more good news about Tenet. Yeah? Or did Dorno have another?
Well, we have some like breaking news.
Ooh,
please, of course.
Rip it out.
Matt Kim on IGN just posted this story, but WWE 2K21 has been canceled according to the WWE. There had been rumors going on about this happening, but during the first quarter earnings call, WWE interim chief financial officer Frank Riddick revealed, quote, "There's not going to be a launch of a game this year," end quote, when asked about a new WWE 2K title. 2K hasn't officially said anything. We've reached out to them, but there have been some ongoing rumors about the possibility of there not being a 2K wrestling game this year. And last year, developer Visual Concepts took over the franchise because Yucas, I'm not trying to pronounce the developer's name, announced they'd be departing the series after a long time developing to do their own wrestling game.
Right. Speaking of games with egregiously long load times.
Yeah.
Was that a criminally bad one?
Oh God, yeah, no. So I don't know if you guys knew anything about the development of the last game. It was I'm sorry, Swain, were you talking? We're getting cross-talked here.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask. I thought we reported recently that 2K is working on a new football IP as well. Is that accurate?
I have to double check. I don't remember actually seeing that report, but I will look for that. But we have been following. Yeah. There have been concerns and rumors specifically about this franchise for that. I know what you're referring to. They did say they'd be working with the NFL a few weeks back, but it's not going to be a football sim game like Madden.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. In terms of the WWE 2K franchise, and if you're in the comments, correct me if I'm spotty on the history here, but they were historically sort of partnered with the same studio making those games for a very long time. And then through a different studio at the project, sort of late in the game, because these are annualized games. And the result was like one of the most like laughably bad, cartoonishly broken wrestling video games ever made. Characters like floating into the ceiling, clipping like crazy. Like you might have seen like animated GIFs of referees, like their arms spinning around. Like look at you can probably see in the footage here, just the amount of like random gyrating that's happening every time a character gets in and out of the ring. So not great. Character models were extremely low poly, like just bad stuff.
Everything you're saying makes me want to play this game.
Yeah.
The very first video I saw being worked on when I came into the offices in LA was a group of people huddled around just using the character creator and like giggling, like, we're going to put that in the video. Apparently, the character creator is also ridiculously
Mitchell
bad.
Saltzman reviewed it for us, and he gave it a 4.3. And his verdict, just to read one sentence, because he's a great reviewer, but this is a really great sentence. WWE 2K19 looked like it stopped the downward trend for the series, but WWE 2K20 doubles back, breaks its ankle, and tumbles down the slope. So yeah, obviously, like it's a bad note to end on, but it makes sense that they would want to take some time to figure out where the franchise is at, where it's heading, and how to recover from that.
Yeah, and I will point out that all of you, after this short video, this episode is done, should go watch the video review, if only because he put the word "bummer slam" in it.
Yeah, that's really good.
So yeah, not surprising that they canceled the new one. That's obviously, I think I would like to see that franchise go to a new home and maybe take a couple years to get right. I actually commend them for not putting out some shoddy consumer project and then not giving anyone refunds or anything.
Do you see this perhaps like ditching the annual format of trying to sell like a new box copy and shifting more to something like we see like Fortnite, where there are seasons? I mean, because that's kind of how the WWE itself is.
Yes and no. I think, anybody who's ever played a sports game has probably wanted that for years, but ultimately these companies and publishers can make more money getting a box on the shelf every year that says a brand new number on it. I mean, by all means, you should be able to buy Madden's roster update for $15 a year, but where's the fun in that if you want a yacht and you run a company?
Yeah, it's definitely the consumer ideal. And I feel like that was the thing that we talked about, especially early in the days when like DLC and updates became such a standard in the industry. It was like, what if they did that for these? But they like money. And as long as these games, Madden and NBA, FIFA continue to be some of the best selling games every year. So I think until we see a drop off in that stuff, and I'm sure, obviously them taking a year off, they're probably analyzing pretty heavily where to go next.
Yeah.
Well then,
not a great year for the WWE in general, honestly.
I was kind of hoping that we'd get like a game that adapted their COVID approach, where it was dudes standing in a ring with an empty audience and just yelling at each other. Like, I'd love to see like a visual novel approach to wrestling, where it's just trash talk.
A Telltale style game.
That'd be fun as hell. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be fun; it would be amusing. But anyway, Some good news, I guess, though it remains to be seen. Christopher Nolan has confirmed that, or Warner Brothers has confirmed that Christopher Nolan's next film, Tenet, is still on target for a theatrical release this summer, so long as theaters are back open for business, which is sort of like balls in your court, fellas. Like,
What?
Yeah, that's
balls in your court reality.
I can't wait to see this movie. It's definitely one of my most anticipated for the year. Like, I love the trailer. And I want to see it in an IMAX screen because it's obviously made for that. Let's just wait 6 months. Like, I'm not gonna go in July to go see this, no matter what's going on.
I don't want to see this on my home TV. Like, I have a nice TV at home. I want to see this on a big screen. Like, Christopher Nolan makes movies made for like theaters.
Yeah, like even the trailer for this said, "See this trailer in IMAX." Like, this is the way you should watch this movie. I imagine we'll see them move. Disney moved a few movies from around that date, I believe. I think Soul was set for either June or July release, and that got pushed. That was sort of a holdout for them. So if we're seeing like some of the biggest like 4-quadrant, for lack of a better movie term, but like some of the biggest family-friendly spectacle movies moving out of that time, I don't see a reason why a movie made for theaters should come out at a time when people won't go to theaters.
Right. I mean, counterpoint, I'm completely okay with paying $20 to watch this at home because like it's going to take a lot to drag my ass to a movie theater this year. And I love Christopher Nolan, but like I'd rather be alive.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, they've delayed almost everything else. They put Scoob to a home VOD release, but everything else, like the Batman, Wonder Woman, all that stuff has been pushed later this year, if not into next year. So it seems like an odd miss.
I wonder if we're going to see an interesting thing where, like, you know, for years, like family movies, kids movies do really well because you have to, you know, if the kids want to go, the adult has to go with them, and then you wound up roping everyone into it, and that's why you sometimes frequently like utter hogwash do incredibly well. But now the flip side of that is, like, you know, if you've got your screaming kids at home, you're like, yeah, I'll pay $20 to watch Scoob, and yeah, you can watch it 8 times in a row. I don't care, because children love to watch the same movie repeatedly.
They do, but they want to watch it more than past the 24 to 48 hour, you know, rental window that you get. And so I think there's going to be some push and pull with that too, because I've already seen like some parents lamenting that. Talking about how like they wanted to rent Trolls, but they didn't want to spend $20 on it because their kid was going to have to watch it 20 times in a week. And it's kind of like, well, you wouldn't have been able to see that movie 20 times in a week in theaters with one ticket anyway, unless you sneak in. And if you can sneak in your entire family into a movie 20 times in 1 week, you deserve to own that theater.
I think the issue is that the kid doesn't understand the reality of marketing and streaming timelines.
Yeah,
no,
that's
it's
exactly.
out, but it's not out yet.
I think we need to explain, like, there needs to be like a new way to explain to children why you can only watch the movie like 6 times in 48 hours, and then after that you can't watch it for a while until it comes out on like actual proper VOD, when there's also big billboards for it around in the city if you do actually leave the house.
We should collectively go ahead, John.
I was going to say that's definitely going to be a very boring episode of Sesame Street right now, because all of the puppeteers have their puppets at home, and they're going to be like, I tried to watch the new Big Bird movie. Why couldn't I keep watching? Well, Elmo.
Yeah.
We should collectively invent a streaming fairy that we tell children starting now takes things away after 48 hours. You leave them a quarter, you know? That's gone now. The fairy.
That's the kind of thing that children would believe in if they like the Troll. That's a good one.
I mean, you could send like one old man on tour to be like, hey, do you have any idea how great this is now compared to back in the day when like you would see Star Wars in theaters and then just describe it to your friends for like 4 years? Or like Jurassic Park, I saw that movie in theaters and then I didn't see it again for what felt like 2 years. And then it came out on VHS. The VHS release was like an event. Like there was a line at my grocery store to buy that movie on VHS. Like
the Disney Vault used to have meaning. They would close that sucker hard.
What if I told you that the Disney Vault was $5 a year or month or whatever, $7 Disney. Anyway, real quick, speaking of Jurassic Park, if you still have your VHS cassette tape that you bought back in 1995 or whenever it came out, stick around after this because Watch from Home Theater is happening. They've got the gentleman Joseph Mazzello, who Tim, the young boy who was electrocuted and almost got killed by dinosaurs in the film. He's now a grown man. He survived the
Spoilers.
Don't spoil the movie. Don't give it all away. This is a very important scene.
Okay, maybe the boy dies. Who knows? You'll have to tune in to find out watching Jurassic Park at home. That's happening right after this, same channel or on the Cinefx YouTube channel. And if you need a copy of Jurassic Park, if that old VHS copy from the supermarket isn't cutting it, we got some links to where you can get it digitally in the comments. Sorry, thank you. We're done. That's it.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaur.
Dino DNA.
Obligatory. Speaking of large animals, large unwieldy animals, we got to talk about Guerrilla Games.
Sure.
That was really good. That worked on multiple levels.
I tried.
Yeah. So this is a dumb piece of news, but sometimes you got to have those days. Guerrilla Games, the makers of the Killzone franchise and Horizon Zero Dawn more recently, put up a little tweet that said they're hiring for for people to work on a new video game, and they use a little hashtag in there, which was a little PS5, which makes you you think maybe that this first party Sony studio is working on a game for Sony's new hardware. Wowzers!
Wait, are you telling me a studio that hasn't released a game since 2017 and has no new announced game in production for the PS4 could be working on the PS5?
I didn't say that.
Shock comment. Although I do, we're showing the Zero Dawn trailer, and I of course hope the much anticipated and generally expected Zero Dawn 2. How funny would it be if it's just a Killzone remaster? Remasters are all the rage. Killzone 1 the way it was. But yeah, I'm assuming / hoping that it's Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and it begs the question, was there a reason to delete it? Why are they holding off on this information? Everyone's taking such a different approach to hype these days. Some people go really short, some people go really...
I mean, I think it is to the fact that they haven't said what they're working on, and as silly as that is, I think Sony is being very protective of letting anything... Like, they have not confirmed any of their first-party studios having a specific PS5 game in development. Like, that's just not a thing they've talked about. And so I guess they don't want the note of record for saying Guerrilla is working on a PS5 game to be this tweet. As silly as that is, that's my guess why they're doing that. Yeah. But,
well, it also seems like Sony, as we said earlier in the show, is being more withholding with information. So I don't know if it's part of a concerted effort behind the scenes to be like, hold. A day will come when we release the information, and this is not that day.
We've said this before, like video games have spent the last sort of 10, 15, 20, 200,000 years trying to ape cinema and become as realistic as possible. A thing they should steal is the way they announce movies, which is just a paragraph with a headline. Like there's no E3 for movies, there's no fanfare, there's no like trailer with a bunch of, Roger Ebert people in the crowd being like, yeah, Skyrim. Like, so when leaks happen, it doesn't really matter. Like the way movies get announced, they just go like, hey, Christopher Nolan is working on this movie called Tenet. It's about space travel of the mind or some bullshit. So enjoy, everyone, eventually. That's it. And then they attach some actors and stuff like that. Like I wish video games would do that.
That was my favorite thing for a couple years back when I had started. We were reporting on the Venom movie for a very long time. Andrew Goldfarb, our news editor, and I used to joke about this all the time. I think we had been talking about the movie Venom for close to 2 years because of reports from Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter and all these things, but Sony did not officially reveal that movie until the teaser poster came out very close to release. Like, Sony never officially said the words Venom as an announced thing. We just kind of all talk about things in, the movie and TV sphere as accepted because of the reports. Whereas with gaming, secrets are held for so long that when leaks happen, it can ruin those surprises. And there still can be surprises. But I think saying Guerrilla is working on a PS5 game ruins nothing.
Yeah, that's obvious. What this does tell us, though, is the job listing, which again has since been deleted, but it was for a senior AI program, quote, who can make a difference in the design and implementation of the systems that make our NPCs come to life. So, spoilers, guys, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is going to have NPCs.
How dare
I
you?
will say,
That's news now. In some game universes, that's news now.
I will say that I am not a senior AI programmer at all, but I don't think you need to go like above and beyond to make the NPCs better than the ones they had in Horizon. That was not really like that game was not my go-to for like great NPCs. You know, like there's a lot of dudes standing around towns being like, "I will get you a weapon." Like, it's not.
Yeah, there's a lot about that game, the first game's world, that feels like alive and really exciting to explore, and most of it has nothing to do with the. So, like them hiring for this role is definitely a good sign for the sequel, because I do think it is probably obviously there's a lot to love about that game, but I think one of the things we do often point to as a like downfall of it is sort of the stiltedness of a lot of the human characters.
Do you think that's the problem? Do you think it was the phrasing? Make a difference in the design and implementations of the systems that make our NPCs come to life? Was it, it's kind of implying that those were some dead NPCs and we need to make a difference there?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we're like, why would they delete this? And it's then we talk about it for 15 minutes because this is what we do.
Yeah, I wonder how many review copies of Horizon Zero Dawn will IGN will get after this wonderful chatterbox session we've had here. Anyway, shifting gears here. This is sort of again, and it's not the most thrilling news day we've ever had, but DICE is ending Battlefield 5 support in June. And they posted the whole blog post saying the current Battlefield 5 chapter Into the Jungle wraps up on April 29th. And as we look into the future, we will release one more standalone and it's a new update. Let's see. I guess the last thing is happening, I think, June 5th. And that's it. And people seem sort of nonplussed by this because I think that Battlefield 5 I feel like it probably sold okay, but not as well as they wanted it to, and not enough to really get everyone riled up.
And go ahead.
I was going to say it didn't, at least on like the IGN audience, obviously, as our senior news editor, I see like a lot of the reaction we get to stories and franchises and just specific games. We saw a lot more interest from the readership, at least around Battlefield 1, which came right before Battlefield 5. But there wasn't quite as much of a connection with our audience, at least for an excitement for Battlefield 5 there was the same with 1. And I think it's because 1 felt so fresh and different and had a bunch of horses in it, and there was just something that like helped it stand apart at a time when we are so inundated with shooters and live service games and multiplayer games that want to keep you engrossed as long and as frequently as possible.
Yeah, I kind of fell in love with Battlefield 1, and I don't historically play shooters. I also didn't really like World War I stuff, and then I inexplicably just got really into that game. And I had a blast with it, and then 5 came out, and I was like, maybe this will do the same thing. And I'm also not really crazy about World War II stuff, and then I was like, maybe this will do it for me. And I was like, I played it for like 20 minutes on a live stream, and I was like, I didn't need it.
Right.
And at the very least, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, in terms of like how EA is treating the Battlefield franchise beyond this, we know that they're not releasing a Battlefield game next year. They talked about this on an earnings call late last year, and that they're aiming for fiscal year 2022, which begins in April 2021 because fiscal years are weird. But so we're not going to see the next Battlefield for some time. So obviously, I think they're trying to take some time and figure out what does click with people.
Right.
I'm not even aware fully of like the timelines. Would this be considered under support or less additional content than you might have hoped for the game? Or
it's tough to say because like the other sort of feather in EA's cap in terms of online multiplayer shooters right now is Battlefront 2, which started out rocky but has consistently gotten support, DLC, new modes. Just recently they launched new content for it. They put BB-8 in the game. Like there's a bunch of Star Wars Episode 9 stuff. Now, granted, that is based on like a existing and growing universe that constantly expands.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, yeah. So I mean, I think there's a little more to play with there. but yeah, I think that like there is an ability for them to long tail support on a first person shooter franchise, but this is a franchise that's sort of lost its footing this generation. I think they were neck and neck with Call of Duty for a while, never in terms of sales, of course, but it was pretty strong. But this time around, I think it's just sort of lost its focus and its cadence, and I'm glad they're going to take a couple years to figure out what that franchise can be.
For a second there, I thought you were telling me they added BB-8 to Battlefield 5, and
couldn't hurt.
They have lost their fun in that case.
Could not hurt.
I complain about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, looking at sort of the timeline of how they typically, parse out DLC for Battlefield. For Battlefield 1, it had basically a 2-year cycle, and then just prior to the launch of, or before the fall release of Battlefield 5, they were continuing DLC, and then they kind of so this is on schedule for them. This is okay. But I think people are looking at it like, oh, well, there's another nail in the coffin, but it's like, no, they were planning on cutting this for a while. So
the comments on YouTube stream, at least from self-avowed Battlefield hardcore fans, are that it was largely disappointing. It's the gist I'm getting from our YouTube stream.
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
EA is obviously focusing, different studio, but within EA, they're focusing on the success shooter-wise of Apex Legends. Like, that has been such a powerhouse for them, and EA has had a weird trajectory with shooters this generation, with the beloved but low-selling Titanfall series, which then led to Apex, but of course the difficult launch of Battlefront 2, and I think Battlefront just not being what people wanted the only Star Wars games to be for a long time. They've had an interesting road when it comes to keeping up in the shooter sphere this generation. So, yeah, as Brian said, them taking time, I think is a smart move for this.
Yeah, going back to what I was saying about WWE turning into a sort of games as a service situation, it would not surprise me one bit at this point, especially with Battlefield, to see that just become, it's not Battlefield 1 or 5 or 4, Hardline or whatever, it's just Battlefield. And you download the launcher, and then there are updates accordingly. Because that would be, they wouldn't be selling individual units, but they would have, there would be less emphasis when they are suddenly, slowing down the DLC on a certain title, because it almost like looks badly on that.
Say, Max, in the interest of only having 13 minutes with our dear friends, the audience here, what do you say we skip this Crash Bandicoot story? Because there's a couple, I think, stronger things later on. Crash Bandicoot has a mobile game. It came out. It's soft launch. It had a surprise soft launch. Is there more to say than that?
No, that's about it.
All right. No, we got a few more news bits.
We did get some other news that Crash Bandicoot was actually arrested for indecent exposure at a Carl's Jr. in Pasadena over the weekend. So that's
very serious.
That's out there. So just so you guys know,
apparently he was intoxicated on strawberry wine, and he was trying to wear his jean shorts as a and he had his sneakers on his hands, which
exposed all the it exposed all the parts of him that you don't really want to see. So that's been bad.
Such as his cloaca. Anyway, let's talk about other things. Michael, what should we talk about besides Crash Bandicoot's cloaca?
Well, if we have time, I'd love to dunk on Fallout 76 has become an honored pastime. But in between,
I love the story.
Talk a little. Oh, you want to jump to? We'll jump to 76, but
let's do it.
We can talk XCOM if we have time. So Fallout 76. As people know, recently unveiled the Wastelanders expansion, the big gimmick of which is it added NPCs. And it made this experiment in a deviation from the successful Fallout form more exactly like what you had expected, which is just a Fallout game.
And it was like when Quibi was like, "We're going to be on TV," and you're like, "That you said you weren't going to be on TV." And everybody
that was your deal. It's like if you got fat-free milk, and they're like, "Now whole milk." But anyway, the funny story we wanted to cover is today. It was talked up on Reddit, and they've said they're going to respond. People are having this experience where when you try to do the quest line, and when we should find the notes, we should shout out the quest lines as a public service to 76 players. But there are NPCs that if you die, loot your corpse, and you cannot loot back from them, even if you come back and kill them, or they're unkillable because they're NPCs. I'm not sure. I just heard about this today. The general gist is you will die and see an NPC go to your corpse and take all your shit, and you can respawn, and it's just gone. So they're addressing it, but that's funny. It's realistic.
What do you mean they're addressing it? They've been addressing it since the game came out. Like, it's just, this is like
presumably they'll continue to address all the things wrong with the game as an ongoing project.
it is the Florida man of video games. Like, we don't, there's never, if there's news, it's almost inevitably bad news. I can't remember hearing anything where everyone's really stoked about this one part. Occasionally it's like players are doing something cool, but for the most part it's like, yeah, they accidentally they made it so when you update the game, you have to re-download the entire game. It's like it was shit like just
yeah.
So this is
I think they should update the game and remove all the players, and just let the NPCs duke it out and
make it a show. Yeah.
Make it a show, make the game free to watch, and you can tune in whatever. And if you want to chip in money to give some of the NPCs like swords or guns, you can do that. But I think the players have definitely been the most disenfranchised part of this playable video game. So if you remove that element entirely and just turn this into like, a sort of a cannibal island, just have at it. Just go have fun.
They should just wait until the playership naturally dwindles to one player, and then Truman show it. Never let on that's the only player. We watch them play. I do want to say, as I said I was going to say, so now I'm going to say it. Don't push me. Radiation Rumble. The names of the quests are Radiation Rumble and Riding Shotgun, that according to our games on Reddit are the most likely to get you this glitch if you are playing 76 out there. Did you guys see the working school? There was a math quiz someone made in 76. People are inventive, given anything. Some people have made some cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to.
That's good to know.
I want to celebrate the Fallout community. Like, there are people on there doing cool stuff, and there's like fun stories about that. But as far as just Bethesda's just had pretty rotten luck managed. I feel like it didn't really rub people the right way when it was announced. And then when it launched, it had problems, and the collector's edition was not the right type of bag. And then it's just been like one thing after another since then.
Yeah, I feel like Bethesda's kind of like a kid at the dinner table, and it's been cute for years when they throw food on the floor, but I feel like they're just straight up throwing food all around the apartment at this point, and have been for quite a long time. Skyrim and all their other classic games, they're all like glitchy and had all these problems, but they're quirky and eccentric and fun, and we liked it. But this generation, we've been like, no, don't do that anymore. That's bad. And they're like, we're not going to fix it. We're broken forever, and we want more money. And we're like, stop it. That's a bad way to go.
And I think Outer Worlds is going to make it even more difficult, frankly, because they had a unique story and some things going on, but it was largely, what if Fallout played reasonably better, as good as some shooters? It makes a big difference. That's nice. I like that.
I really like as good as some shooters as a box score.
Well, it's not as good as the best current shooters, but it played significantly better than Fallout,
There was a sign, I will never stop quoting this. There was a sign at my grocery store growing up in New Jersey that had it was paper and printed on the grocery store computer and laminated cheaply. And it was above all of the bread that they were going to throw out. And it said, not the best, but still a good buy. And I feel like that's
a sandwich.
That's like what it should say on like Serious Sam or something like that, where you're like, all right, this is day old bread, but are you hungry or what? You eating in your car? Because we got some food.
Yeah, this is just. It's also just like, it's such a. Anybody who's stuck with Fallout 76 this far, it's just like, it's something worse than salt in the wound. It's like injecting salt intravenously to somebody who survived salt-related injuries earlier in time.
The game takes your stuff.
It's like, some people will be like, Fallout 76 is a ripoff, and it's like, you spend 120 hours at it. It's like, then it steals the things that you earned. It's like, Now
Right?
it's a ripoff. The game
this
itself robbing players. Like the AI is ripping people off.
It's bordering on social experiment to see like how much they can push away the dedicated few who have still held on in hope that this will someday improve. They're like, steal their guns forever.
I think the AI has become sentient and is looking around at the game structure and it's like, oh, I see what we're doing here. We're ripping people off.
Is it just
Here I go.
Westworld? Like, are they
Yeah.
get going? Anyway, before we got a few minutes left here, but I wanted to talk about this. The 2020 gathering of the Juggalos has unfortunately been canceled due to COVID-19.
Breaking my heart.
The Insane Clown Posse said the bottom line here is that we refuse to risk even one Juggalo life by hosting a gathering during these troubling times. Which is, that's responsible. And also, like, I feel like there was a point in history where I was like, the Juggalos, no thank you. I don't like their type. And now it's like things have gotten so much worse that I'm like, they're okay, and I hope they're doing well out there.
Oh, they're fine by me.
Yeah,
Stay safe, Juggalos.
Chaotic good. I'm all for it.
They absolutely are. Although I got to say, the main takeaway from the article, I read the full article on the Run and Show we were talking, is they have repeatedly tried and failed to get themselves declassified as a gang. They're officially on the gang registry nationally as a loose affiliation of gang prone to like public drunkenness, public exposure, urination, and petty vandalism. I'm like, that does describe Juggalo. That's a pretty good classification.
That tracks.
Yeah.
I will say that in the original post they put on social media, they used a lowercase impact font with a stroke around it and like kerning. So it was like this condensed. It was one of the most, it was like, whoa, that's a lot of information. Like I think they're I don't know. Their Photoshop needs social distancing. Like you got put a couple spaces in there.
I think that's on.
Couple paragraph breaks.
That almost looks like the makeup, just getting impact font squished together with an outline. Pretty close.
It's the Juggalo of fonts.
No, I just honestly like there's been like numerous times when I'm like, yeah, I would love to go cover the gathering of the Juggalos. Like somebody was like, okay, you can go to San Diego Comic-Con or the gathering of the Juggalos. Like, well, I've been to Comic-Con. Let's see what this is,
Workaholics as well. Have you seen the Juggalo episode of Workaholics?
I think so.
Chef's kiss.
But anyway, we've got a couple minutes left, but this is a stupid little piece of like fluffy, like tidbit nonsense trivia. But
skip that. All right, go for it.
You want to skip? What do you want to do? You want to talk about Shakira?
I was just going to say, well, if you're in the hot metropolitan area of Garrettsville, Ohio, I'm sorry to say the Juggalo gathering won't be coming to you. But yeah, no, between Shakira and Hemsworth, let's go Hemsworth. You're right. Close us out. I apologize. Retract.
Hemsworth. So Chris Hemsworth was on Jimmy Kimmel Live, from his house, and talked about his time in quarantine. And apparently, he's famous for being Thor in those Thor Marvel films. And you'd think that maybe, his family would be supportive and want to celebrate that. But apparently every time he puts the Mjolnir hammer up on like the mantelpiece, his wife just passive aggressively puts it in the, which is just really funny to me. That's just like a wonderful little anecdote. And so he'll just like, he'll like try to display it. Like he'll try to put it in the kitchen and his wife puts it in the cupboard, like just hides it, which is just like, I mean, you're married to Chris Hemsworth. What are you doing? Just what?
She's starting the Fast and Furious for him.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
He hides her car in the cupboard. She doesn't complain.
That's not fair. But also, apparently, I guess this is the sort of stuff they talk about on late night TV, which is how much toilet paper do you? And his wife accidentally ordered 15 boxes. Because she thought she was buying one box with 15 rolls. So there's just a whole lot of toilet paper in that house.
How did she think 15 rolls was going to be stacked three-dimensionally? No box would be 15.
I think it also...
Am I crazy?
That's a good logical observation. The other one is how does that, like, when you get the price for that, how does that add up as like the price that toilet paper should be?
As an acceptable price. Yeah.
They're both in billion-dollar movie franchises.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a Arrested Development, like how much thing.
Yeah, they don't even look at that. No, this is a great story. I love it a lot. I will say that it's been really funny watching sort of celebrities being like, we're just like us, because like that happens all the time. But yeah, like everyone is dealing with a toilet paper shortage at the same time, so that's a big mess. Swaim, I wanted to talk to you real quick because you got probably one of the dumbest Secret Santa gifts I've ever seen at Christmas, which was like a comically large roll of toilet paper, and that's not even describing it well. It's like 3 feet tall, and it's got its own stand and everything like that.
Like
everyone laughed at you. They threw stones at you and spit on your shoes.
Now I am selling the remnants of those wheels to Chris Hemsworth's wife at a huge markup. She has no idea, dude.
She has no idea.
I love it. Well,
no, but those lasted well into the quarantine.
This has been tons of fun. We got to wrap things up right now because Watch From Home Theater is kicking off in just a minute, and they're going to be watching Jurassic Park with Joe Mazzello, Tim Murphy himself, the original little boy who survived, or did he survive Dinosaur Island? You'll have to watch the film to find out. Jurassic Park.
What the hell, man?
Who hasn't seen the film? Who hasn't seen Jurassic Park?
What island? What island?
Anyway, the island is Isla Nublar. Everyone knows that. Anyway.
Spoilers.
Stick around for that. That is happening right after this, same spot. And then tomorrow we'll be back here at 4 o'clock with news, games, and more. Plenty more of that. And then immediately after that, Brian and I will be doing a brand new episode of our stupid F-word around show up at noon live at 5, which is not at noon. It's at 5 Pacific time. So hang out for that. We got toys to talk about, all sorts of nonsense, tomfoolery, hogwash. And on that, we're out of here. Good night.
Have a good night. Go watch Jurassic Park.